Welcome to Midnight Archives, a quiet corner of the night where mysteries are not solved, but slowly unwrapped, like fog brushing against forgotten walls. Here, stories don't shout, they whisper, and tonight, we follow the faint footsteps of a girl who wandered far from home, drawn to light and swallowed by shadow. Her name was Elisa Lam, and her story lingers not in headlines, but in hushes. So settle in. Let the world outside fall away. Let your breath slow, and gently now, let us drift into her mystery. In the quiet city of Vancouver, where the rain drapes the streets in silver and the mountains cradle the skyline, a young woman named Elisa Lam packed her suitcase. It was early 2013. She was 21, bright-eyed, thoughtful, and always a little restless. Her journal pages were filled with dreams, doubts, and distant places she longed to see. She told her parents she needed to get away, to wander, explore, feel something beyond the gray winter pressing in on her spirit. It wasn't rebellion. It was something gentler, quieter, a desire to feel the world in motion beneath her feet. She planned it carefully, mapping out her route down the West Coast. First San Diego, then Los Angeles. A solo journey, but never truly alone. Her blog would be her companion, her photos her breadcrumbs. Her words, soft, poetic, spoke of bookstores, coffee shops, fleeting encounters with strangers. And under it all, a fragile hope that something out there might soothe the restlessness inside her. She had no idea how many eyes would one day follow her trail. Elisa loved words. She collected them the way others might collect postcards. Phrases, quotes, poetry that gave shape to what she couldn't always say aloud. She posted them on her Tumblr blog, often late at night. Pieces of Sylvia Plath, Virginia Woolf, anonymous fragments of aching beauty. There was something magnetic about her voice. Wistful, introspective, wise beyond her years. She didn't hide her struggles. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and she wrote openly about the shadows that sometimes stretched across her days. But even in her sadness, there was grace. Even in her fear, there was softness. To those who knew her, Elisa was bright, curious, funny. She could be quiet, but she cared deeply. Her mind moved quickly, sometimes too quickly, but her heart was steady. She wasn't trying to escape her life. She was reaching for something larger. A sense of belonging, perhaps, or peace. In January of 2013, she left home with her camera, her journal, and a sense of wonder tucked carefully into her coat pocket. Each night, as the cities passed beneath her, Elisa scribbled her thoughts into her journal. She had a way of writing that felt like dreaming on paper, soft, spiraling, raw. Some entries were cheerful. Museums, new foods, books bought on a whim. Others were more fragile. Little notes of doubt and loneliness. Moments of silence that grew too long. She wrote about strangers she met. Servers who smiled, passengers on buses, glimpses of lives that intersected with hers only for a moment. These snapshots became part of her story, stitched into the pages like soft echoes. Travel, she once wrote, was like floating, a dream you walk through wide awake. But dreams are delicate things, and not all of them are kind. Her handwriting changed when she was anxious, sharper, tighter. Sometimes whole pages were scratched out, but she never stopped writing. Words were her tether. As she approached Los Angeles, the pages grew quieter. Shorter entries, more questions than answers. Still, she pressed on, unaware that these final chapters would become a mystery the world would one day try to read. Los Angeles rises out of the earth like a mirage. Sun-baked streets, wide skies, and the hum of dreams in every corner. Elisa arrived on January 26th, stepping off the train with a camera around her neck and a map folded neatly in her bag. She'd been to San Diego first, wandering beaches, visiting museums, but Los Angeles felt different. Bigger, louder, older. It buzzed beneath the surface, like a city holding its breath. She checked into the Cecil Hotel in downtown LA. It was affordable and centrally located, a place for budget travelers. Elisa didn't know its history, or maybe she did but thought nothing of it. The lobby was old but charming, with worn carpets and tired chandeliers. She was placed in a shared room at first, then moved after her roommates complained of strange behavior. She didn't write much those days, just quick posts. Photo here, quote there. Still, she was seen by staff, by guests, by the city itself. Wandering bookstores, shopping downtown, always alone, always quiet. Los Angeles welcomed her, but it also watched her. The Cecil Hotel stood like a tired sentinel in the heart of downtown, a building with too many stories and too many secrets. Built in the 1920s, its faded elegance hinted at a grander past. But time had not been kind. By the 1980s, it had earned a reputation, a strange one, a place touched by tragedy, suicides, violence, lost souls. Some called it cursed. Others just called it cheap. Elisa checked in with little fanfare. She was assigned a room on the 5th floor. At first, she shared it with other travelers, but something unsettled them. She was moved to a single room, alone. The hotel's corridors were narrow, dim, carpets soaked in decades of footsteps. Elisa walked them quietly, sometimes late at night. No one knows what she felt there, whether the air felt heavier, whether she noticed the flicker of old lights or the way sound seemed to echo longer than it should. But something changed in her. She stopped writing, or at least she stopped sharing. As if something had pressed pause on the voice that had guided her thus far. The Cecil was more than just a hotel. It was a shadow stitched into the city's fabric. Its walls held stories the way an old tree holds scars. Unspoken, unexplained. In the 1930s, a man leapt from the window. In the 40s, another was found dead in his room. The deaths continued, decades of sorrow layered like dust. In 1947, just blocks away, Elizabeth Short, the Black Dahlia, was last seen at the bar. In the 1980s, a serial killer once called the Cecil home. Some say the hotel draws darkness. Others say it simply never lets go. Elisa didn't mention the hotel's past. Perhaps she never looked it up. Perhaps she didn't want to know. But even the most skeptical travelers have reported feeling watched, as if something unseen lived just beyond the edges of vision. The elevator creaked with age. The lights flickered without reason. Doors closed by themselves. And somewhere inside all that stillness, Elisa moved alone. Elisa's room was small, barely enough space for a bed, a desk, and a suitcase tucked to one side. The window looked out onto rooftops and alleyways, the kind of view that made the city feel far away. She was quiet during those days. Staff saw her now and then, walking in and out, browsing the lobby, stepping into the elevator with a vacant sort of calm. She had places to go, she said, things to see, but she seemed tired. Maybe not in the physical sense, but emotionally, spiritually drained. Something invisible weighing her steps. She took her medications. That much we know. But the mind is a complex thing, and even the most careful routines can fray under the strain of travel, isolation, and inner turmoil. At night, the hallway lights buzzed. The pipes groaned. The city roared beyond the windows, but inside the Cecil, everything felt muffled, as if the air were heavier, as if silence itself had a heartbeat. The decision to move Elisa from a shared room to a private one came quietly. Her roommates had expressed discomfort. Nothing specific, just unease. Elisa's behavior had become odd, they said. She would leave the door open. She'd talk to herself, laugh suddenly, then fall silent. It wasn't alarming, just unusual. The staff didn't see reason for concern. Travelers are often strange. People act differently when they're alone in a new place. They gave her a single room, thinking it would help. Give her space, privacy, but sometimes solitude only amplifies the things we try to quiet. She continued to explore the city, shop for books, ride buses, be seen, and yet no one seemed to know her well. No friends, no long conversations, just a presence, drifting like fog through the downtown streets. Her last blog post was a brief message. She mentioned a bookstore, and then nothing. Downtown Los Angeles is a maze of contradiction. Glittering buildings beside crumbling alleyways. Lights and shadows in equal measure. And somewhere in that labyrinth, Elisa wandered. She was seen by several people. Staff at a bookstore, a woman in a coffee shop, passers-by who remembered a soft-spoken girl with long dark hair and thoughtful eyes. Always polite, always quiet. She had a notebook in her bag. A camera. Sometimes she'd stop and take a photo of something others didn't notice. A fire escape, a mural, a shadow cast just right. But even as the city pulsed around her, Elisa seemed slightly apart, like she was listening to a song only she could hear. No one knows where she went that last day. No receipts, no texts, just absence. The kind that creeps in slowly and settles into the corners of a story like dust. And above it all, the Cecil loomed, waiting. January 31st. That was the last time anyone saw Elisa Lam. A clerk at the hotel remembered her. She was alone, quiet. Her movements were strange. Unhurried but purposeful. She seemed off, but not in a way that raised alarms. Just different. Later that night, she vanished. Her parents waited for her to call. She didn't. They grew worried and contacted the LAPD. A missing persons report was filed. Flyers were printed. Officers searched the hotel from bottom to rooftop. But she was gone. No trace. Just silence. Then, days later, the police released a piece of footage, grainy, strange, and deeply unsettling. A video of Elisa in the hotel's elevator, caught just before she disappeared. It would soon become one of the most haunting images of internet lore. The elevator doors slid open, and Elisa stepped inside. The footage was dated January 31st, the day she vanished. Captured by a grainy surveillance camera, it was quiet, no sound, just her, standing in the small metal box, pressing buttons on the panel. Floor after floor, all of them, some said, but the elevator didn't move. She peeked into the hallway, stepped out, then back in again, pressed against the corner, hid like a child playing a game. Her gestures were erratic, hands fluttering in the air, fingers splaying as if speaking in sign, or swimming through something unseen. Then she left. The doors remained open for what felt like forever. No one followed. Nothing moved. It was strange, unsettling. The way dreams are unsettling, not loud or violent, just wrong in a way your soul recognizes before your mind does. That footage would become infamous. Millions watched it. An unsolved riddle looped in silence. But for Elisa, it was just another moment. The last one caught on camera. The footage spread like mist across the internet. First local news, then forums, then everywhere. People watched and rewatched, slowing it down, studying every gesture. They made theories, drew maps, speculated wildly. The Cecil was no longer just a hotel. It became a symbol, a setting in a ghost story still unfolding. Was she hiding? Was someone following her? Had the elevator malfunctioned? Or was something else, something stranger, at play? Everyone had a theory, but no one had answers. Meanwhile, Elisa's parents arrived in Los Angeles. They walked the same streets she had, visited the bookstore she loved, held photos of their daughter and asked strangers, "Have you seen her?" Flyers were taped to lampposts, posted in windows. A soft face, long dark hair, eyes full of questions. And still, the hotel stood quietly, watching. The LAPD began a full-scale search of the Cecil. They checked every hallway, every stairwell, every room they had legal access to. Dogs were brought in, trained to pick up even the faintest trace. But nothing surfaced. No scent, no sign. The hotel was large, over 600 rooms, and parts of it were difficult to navigate. Old architecture mixed with renovations, some areas closed off or abandoned. Staff and guests were questioned. No one had seen her since that night. The rooftop was checked too, or so they thought. But it was locked with alarm doors. No sign of forced entry. Cameras didn't show her going there. Still, something about the air felt heavy. The walls seemed to hold their breath. And the elevator footage continued to haunt everyone who watched it. That small, quiet girl, moving in ways no one could explain. 10 days passed. No word, no sign, no sound. The media called it bizarre. Internet detectives tried to piece together the puzzle. Some blamed foul play. Others whispered of ghosts or psychosis or something darker. Theories tangled like roots in the dark. But for Elisa's family, it was grief wrapped in confusion. They didn't need wild stories. They needed truth. They needed her. They visited the hotel daily, waiting, hoping, dreading. Each night, the lights in the Cecil's rooms flickered on and off. Life went on around them. Cars in the street, guests coming and going, laughter from the sidewalk bars. And yet, one room remained silent. Elisa's. Some staff swore they still felt her there. Not as a presence exactly, but as a weight, pause in the air, a whisper of something unfinished. Then the water began to change. Guests at the Cecil started to complain. The pressure was weak. The color was odd. Sometimes brown, sometimes almost black. One couple said it tasted strange, sweet and bitter at once. The hotel sent maintenance to investigate. On the roof were 4 large water tanks, each sealed with a heavy metal lid. A worker climbed the ladder, opened one, and looked inside. And there she was, Elisa, floating silently in the dark water, naked, alone, face upward, as if still searching for something in the sky. She had been there all along. The rooftop of the Cecil was not easily reached. Access required a key, and the door was locked. An alarm should have sounded if anyone forced it. But no one heard anything. The only other route was through a narrow fire escape. Dangerous, rusted, and open to the wind. No one could say if Elisa had climbed it. No cameras captured that path. The water tank itself was tall, over 10 feet high. Heavy lids covered the openings. The idea that she had climbed up, opened one, slipped inside, and closed it behind her seemed unlikely. But there she was. Her belongings, clothes, wristwatch, room key were found nearby, inside the tank or scattered on the roof. Her phone was missing, and the question hung in the air like fog. How did she get there? The coroner's report took weeks to arrive. Concluded that Elisa Lam's death was accidental, drowning. There were no signs of trauma, no evidence of assault, no drugs or alcohol in her system. Her bipolar disorder was noted. That's what they leaned on, mental illness. But many were not satisfied. Her clothes were found separately. Why had she removed them? Why weren't they floating beside her? The lid, so heavy, was found closed. Had she shut it behind herself? How? And most chilling of all, had she been alive when the first guests noticed the water change? The report ended questions, but it didn't answer them. The official story was one of tragedy, but unofficially, the story whispered on. Stranger than fiction, softer than truth. The world had theories. Some believed Elisa had experienced a manic episode, confused, frightened, and lost in her own mind. Others pointed to the elevator footage, claiming it was evidence of something paranormal, something darker. A curse, a presence, an invisible hand pulling the strings. Some said she was murdered, that someone had followed her, that she was hiding in the elevator, pleading for help in gestures too quiet to be understood. There were maps, diagrams, conspiracies that linked her to government tests, to a tuberculosis outbreak, even to cults. But none of it mattered to those who loved her. She was gone, and the answers, if they ever existed, had been swallowed by the still water of that rooftop tank. Elisa became something more than herself. Online, she was everywhere. Her image, her story, her final moments looped endlessly. People wrote songs, made videos, crafted digital memorials. Others treated her like a puzzle to be solved, a ghost to be hunted. But Elisa was not a myth. She was a daughter, a sister, a girl who loved books and quiet cafes, who wrote poetry in the margins of her journal. She had fears. She had dreams. She had every intention of going home. And yet the world turned her into a symbol of mystery, of madness, of what we cannot understand. But in all the noise, her voice, the one from her blog, her thoughts, her poems, was often forgotten. Elisa once wrote, "You're always haunted by the idea that you're wasting your life." Her words, still drifting in the corners of the internet, feel like echoes now, soft and aching. They are the truest pieces of her we have left. Fragments of who she was, unfiltered, honest, human. She spoke of loneliness, of wonder, of struggling to hold on to hope. And still she traveled. Still she tried to live. In the end, there are no easy conclusions. Just silence. A girl, a hotel, a city that never stopped moving, and a rooftop tank filled with more questions than answers. The story continues not in facts, but in feeling, and her voice, quiet, uncertain, beautiful, still lingers. The Cecil Hotel did not speak. Its windows stared blankly at the city. Its walls held secrets older than memory. Stories of those who came and vanished, of those who never meant to stay long but never left. Elisa was one of many, and yet she was different. Her story pierced the veil. It moved with the wind and lingered on the stairs. Some said the hotel had absorbed her sadness, that the walls could now whisper her name. But the building did not speak, not in words, only in echoes, in cold water, in the flicker of hallway lights. The guests came and went. Some had no idea. Others chose the Cecil because of her. They took photos, hoping to feel something. But Elisa was not there. Not anymore. She had passed into something else. A memory shaped like a question. Elisa had plans. That morning, before she disappeared, she visited a bookstore downtown. A small, quiet shop filled with used paperbacks and soft music playing low in the corners. The owner remembered her well. Friendly, curious, thoughtful. She was buying a gift, she said. Something for her family back home. She smiled. Nothing seemed off. But no one knew what happened after that. No one knows how a sunny day ended in cold water. Was she followed? Did something within her shift? Did she feel afraid? Or did she just get lost? Inside herself or inside that sprawling, indifferent building? These questions float quietly at the edge of sleep, unanswered and tender. The fire escape was old. A black metal skeleton clinging to the hotel's side. Narrow, rusted, dangerous. Yet it was the only known way to reach the roof without setting off alarms. Clanged and groaned in the wind. Could Elisa have climbed it? Alone at night? Could she have scaled it in the dark? Driven by something unknown? It's possible. But no one saw. The windows along the route were closed. The ladder was steep, and the final climb to the water tank was no small feat. But people are capable of strange things when they're afraid, or when they feel pulled by something they cannot explain. Even now, guests say they sometimes hear footsteps on the metal stairs at night, always going up, never coming down. The door to the rooftop was locked. A red warning sign. Alarm will sound if opened. Security insisted they would have heard it. And yet, no alarm was triggered. No footage caught Elisa passing through. The camera just before the door was turned off. Broken, they said. It was as if she vanished in the spaces between sight. The building itself seemed to allow it, as though it knew how to hide things in its seams. A trick of time and shadow. The door remained locked. The camera remained silent. But Elisa was found on the other side. The water tank stood tall, cylindrical, silent, heavy with secrets. Its lid was not easy to lift, thick metal requiring strength and balance. The surface was slippery, the edge sharp. And yet she was found inside. No ladder inside the tank. No sign of injury, just stillness. The water was deep and black. It cradled her gently, as if trying to hold her sorrow. Some believe she climbed in willingly. Others say she was placed there. But either way, the tank did not speak. It just held her, quietly, for days. Her room was still and undisturbed. Inside, her belongings told quiet stories. A laptop still holding fragments of thoughts, clothes folded with care, books filled with pages marked and remarked. Her medication was there, partially taken, a sign of routine or of forgetfulness. No one could say for sure. Her phone was never found. Some think it was taken, others think it was lost. But it was the one piece missing from her story. The voice she carried with her, gone. Only fragments remained, like her blog, like her final posts, like the silence of her room. Before her trip, Elisa kept a blog. It was honest, raw, sometimes funny, sometimes heavy. She wrote of sleepless nights, of medication adjustments, of trying to feel normal, of longing for more. Travel excited her, scared her too, but she wanted to feel alive. Her words were beautiful even when sad. They gave shape to her inner world. Fragile, searching, sincere. Reading them now is like listening to a voice echo from a faraway place. She was trying to hold on, trying to be free. There is a place between sorrow and light, a twilight where some stories live. Elisa's story exists there. Not entirely tragic, not entirely lost, but suspended, like breath in cold air. She wasn't just what happened to her. She was the girl who bought books for her family, who took photos of sunsets, who saw beauty in the broken. The world may remember her for the mystery, but there was more. There always is. The truth is, we don't know. We may never know. Some stories are not puzzles to be solved, but feelings to be felt. Elisa's story resists clarity. It lives in the shadows of understanding. Did her mind betray her? Did someone else? The evidence is thin. The facts are few, but the ache is real. And in the end, what's left is not the elevator footage, not the theories, but the memory of a girl, full of hope, full of questions, gone too soon. Some say we become stories when we leave this world. If that's true, then Elisa's is still unfolding. Each whisper, each retelling, each soft-footed theory keeping her present in our thoughts. Not as a ghost, not as a symbol, but as a person. A young woman with a bright mind, a quiet strength, and a fragile heart. Her light may have dimmed in the water, but it didn't go out. It simply shifted into memory, into moonlight, into the quiet corners of the internet where her words still echo. And tonight, she is here with us, not in fear, not in sorrow, but in story. People still watch the elevator footage. Years have passed, but it continues to draw them in, frame by frame, second by second. Elisa stepping in, pressing buttons, her hands rising, her body shifting, her glance cast into something unseen. It's like watching a dream, or a memory you didn't know you had. We look for signs, clues in her movements. We want to understand, but maybe we're searching too hard. Maybe what we're seeing is simply someone unraveling, or someone reaching out into something we can't quite grasp. The elevator never moved. It just waited, like the story itself paused between questions. After the video was released, strangers became searchers. They built timelines, zoomed in on screenshots, mapped out the hotel's blueprints. They spoke with certainty, even when they didn't know her name before. Some wanted to help. Others wanted to be part of something bigger than themselves. But in their urgency, something was lost. Elisa became a riddle instead of a person. Her pain became entertainment. And the space for softness, the space for sorrow, grew smaller and smaller. Sometimes even curiosity can hurt. Theories can feel like comfort, like control. They let us believe we're closer to answers, that the world isn't as chaotic as it seems. But in Elisa's case, the theories piled up like fog. Paranormal explanations, dark conspiracies, accusations of murder. Some even targeted strangers who stayed at the hotel at the same time. People wanted to believe there was more, that something sinister had happened. Maybe there was, but maybe it was simply a tragedy, a perfect storm of mental health, isolation, and a city too large to notice someone slipping away. And maybe the truth is quieter than we're willing to accept. Los Angeles did not stop. Not for Elisa. Not for anyone. The cars still honked. The stars still came out. The sidewalk outside the Cecil was cleaned. The guests were checked in and out. And one day the story faded from the headlines. But not from memory. She lingers in the margins. A name you see while scrolling. A photo that stops you. A video thumbnail you don't dare to click at night. Elisa became part of the city's shadow. A soft sadness that hides in the glow of neon signs. Unseen, but felt. After the discovery, Elisa's parents did not speak publicly for long. Their pain was private and sacred. They had traveled across a continent to find their daughter. They'd waited in lobbies, prayed in hallways, held hands in silence. And in the end, they left with only grief. There was no one to blame, no trial, no final scene that made it make sense. Only a body, and an emptiness where their daughter used to be. They took her home, and tried somehow to live again. A lawsuit was filed. The family claimed the hotel had been negligent, that the tank should have been inaccessible, that the roof should have been more secure. But the court did not agree. The building was old, the circumstances strange. The conclusion, her death was accidental, stood.
No compensación.
No official wrongdoing. just a legal document that closed the case. But not the wound. Some things aren't about winning. Some things are just about being heard, even if the answer is silence. Elisa's story became a mirror. We see what we want to see in it. Mystery, warning, tragedy, fear. She became a vessel for projection. Some relate to her struggles. Others fear them. Some romanticize her pain. Others turn it into fiction. But she wasn't a symbol. She was a girl who loved words, who felt deeply, who sometimes fell apart. And yet she got up, traveled, smiled, reached for something brighter, until the darkness came again. Her story reminds us that people are fragile, and that even the strong can fall through cracks no one else sees. Sometimes, when the night is quiet, you might dream of her, not as a ghost, not as a mystery, but as a girl at a bookstore, or writing on her laptop, or watching the city lights flicker through a hotel window. The dream never ends in the tank. It ends in her voice, soft and wondering, asking questions no one else dares to. It ends in motion, in the clicking of elevator buttons, in footsteps on the stairs, and in the feeling that something is just out of reach but not yet lost. Water holds memory. They say it remembers movement, sound, emotion. The water in the Cecil's tank touched Elisa in her final moments. It moved through her hair, carried her stillness. It drifted down into sinks and showers, into pipes and drains. It moved through the building, and then it was gone. But maybe, in some quiet, unseen way, the water remembered her. Maybe it held a part of her that day. A whisper, a breath. Maybe that's why the story still lingers. Because the water never truly let her go. This is not an ending. There are no credits, no clear final words, just the soft hush of unresolved things. Elisa's story drifts like mist, always present, never fully formed. A girl caught in the spaces between reason and wonder, between fact and feeling. And maybe that's why we return to it, because it touches something fragile in us. The part that fears being lost, the part that wants to be seen. So tonight we leave her gently, not in fear, not in confusion, but in stillness. A goodbye made of candlelight and calm water. A whisper carried through time. Sleep well, Elisa. Some say they've seen her. Not clearly, just a glimpse, a figure behind a curtain, a shadow in the hallway, a reflection in the elevator glass. They whisper that's Elisa, but perhaps it's not her at all. Perhaps it's the weight of wondering, the echo of a story unfinished, a presence shaped by longing, not by haunting. The human heart is good at making ghosts, especially when it misses someone it never met. And so, the image lingers. A girl in the window, looking out, waiting. Not trapped, just watching. Room 506 is just a room. There's a bed, a desk, a mirror. Nothing special. But for those who know, it feels different. Not haunted, just hollow. As if the air remembers something. Elisa stayed there for only a short time. But her presence left a stillness behind, like a room exhaling after someone leaves. Guests who stay there say they sleep deeply, or not at all. They feel watched, or strangely safe.
No proof, no explanation.
Just silence, and the memory of someone who once dreamed inside those walls. Elisa was not the only one. The city holds many names. Women who came to Los Angeles full of hope and vanished into its sprawl. Runaways, students, visitors, dreamers. They disappear in alleys and hotels, in bus stations and rooftops. Their stories fade into paperwork and forgotten posters. But some, like Elisa's, remain bright, haunting, unforgettable. Her story became a lantern in the dark, a reminder that behind every mystery is a person, a heart, a life, and a family that still whispers their name. Though Elisa is gone, her voice remains. In blog posts, in scattered comments, in poetry. She once wrote, "You're always haunted by the idea you're wasting your life." And maybe that's what made her story resonate. She feared. She tried. She felt so much. Her words reach out still, quiet, yearning, beautifully flawed. They say what many of us are too afraid to admit. That we want more, that we hurt, that we dream. And in that way, she lives on. Not in the footage, not in the theories, but in words that still make hearts ache. Elisa wasn't running from something. She was moving toward something. She had a map, a journal, a plan. She wanted to see cities, museums, landmarks, stories. She was braver than people think. To travel alone, to walk unfamiliar streets, to navigate both a foreign city and her own emotions. Even now, people follow her footsteps. They visit the bookstore. They look up at the hotel's windows, trying to understand. But maybe there's nothing to understand, only to feel. Friends once said Elisa loved music. She made playlists. She shared lyrics. She listened late into the night. One of her favorites was "Such Great Heights." Maybe it reminded her of connection, of wonder, of distance that didn't feel lonely. Music speaks when words fail. And in her silence, maybe the song still played, floating through the air, up the stairwell, through the pipes, into the stillness of the rooftop, a soft echo of something beautiful. Water both hides and reveals, can reflect a face or swallow it. The water in the tank became a mirror the world stared into, hoping to see answers, hoping not to see themselves. Because there is a part of Elisa in all of us, the desire to explore, the fear of unraveling, the dream of escape. And maybe that's what makes her story stay. Not just mystery, but recognition, a quiet mirror of the soul. It's hard not to imagine. What if she had made it back to Vancouver, back to her family, back to rainy mornings and quiet corners of the library? Would she have shared stories from her trip, laughed about strange hotel guests, typed a final blog entry full of wonder? Would she have healed? It's a question without an answer. But in another world, just a breath away, maybe she did. Maybe there is a version of Elisa who made it home. And maybe she's dreaming of us now. Why? It lingers like fog. Soft and weightless, yet impossible to hold. Why was the door unlocked? Why was the footage strange? Why was she alone? The question has no edges, no clear shape. It wraps around the story. It holds it in place. But maybe the question isn't meant to be answered. Maybe it's meant to be felt, to remind us that not everything must be solved to matter. Some stories live because they never end. The story slows, the wind quiets, the hotel darkens, the city forgets. But we remember. We carry Elisa in whispers, in candlelight, in the stillness between thoughts. She was more than a mystery. She was someone's daughter, someone's friend, a thinker, a traveler, a soul searching for something beautiful. Tonight we let her rest. No more questions. No more searching, only peace. Sleep now, Elisa. You are remembered, and you are safe. Night carries stories the way water carries whispers. It moves softly, slipping into quiet corners, brushing against closed eyes. Elisa's story floats there, in the hush before dreams, in the stillness between sighs, not to startle, not to scare, but to remind us of how thin the line is between presence and absence, sound and silence. Tonight, her name is carried by the dark like a lullaby, gentle, wandering, never gone. Everywhere she went, something remained. The bench in the bookstore where she sat, the sidewalk she crossed under California skies, the pillow she rested on in room 506. None of it calls attention, none of it shouts, but if you listen, if you slow down enough, you'll feel it. A softness left behind, the warmth of someone who once hoped, the trail of a girl who just wanted to see, to feel more than numbness. Even the quiet places remember her. This story is not just about Elisa. It's about those who carry hidden weights. The ones who smile while unraveling, who keep walking when the path disappears, who write beautiful things and feel empty anyway. If that's you, you are not alone. Elisa's story is tragic, but it is not hopeless. She tried, she reached, she lived, and that matters. So if you're listening in the dark, feeling fragile, this whisper is for you. You are seen, you are held, you are not too much. Sometimes we ask the wrong things. We chase answers when what we really need is stillness. We want to explain what's meant to be felt. Elisa's story resists definition. It lives in the spaces between known and unknown, between comfort and fear, between memory and myth. And in that space we find something sacred, a mystery not meant to be solved, only heard, only held. Now we come to the end, not of the story but of the telling. Elisa remains, not in the footage, not in the theories, but in the quiet hearts of those who remember. Her voice is gone, but the whisper stays, tells us to be gentle, to be curious, to be kind to ourselves and to the ones we don't understand. The mystery may linger, but so does the grace. So tonight, as you drift, carry her softly. Let her name be the hush that lulls you. Let the final thought be peace. Good night, Elisa. You are not forgotten. You've been listening to Midnight Archives, a place where mystery is an atmosphere, not a riddle to be solved, but a feeling to float in. Tonight, as the city sleeps and the sky folds into silence, carry with you the story of Elisa, not to untangle, but to remember softly. If this quiet journey brought you calm, consider subscribing. Another whisper waits in the wings, for when the moon is high again. Until then, sleep gently, wonder deeply, and may all who wander find peace in the in-between.